So what if I told you all of the rankings, all of the ADPs on all your draft sites are all completely BS and you are wasting your time by following them? Not all rankings and not all ADPs are actually BS, but the reason why I wanted to make this video for today was because I feel like a lot of people end up being slaves to the rankings of their favorite creator, whether it's me or somebody else out there, or they are slaves to the ADPs of the sites they're drafting on, whether that's Yahoo, Sleeper, ESPN, or somewhere else, and they just follow these things blindly. Now, why did I say in the beginning that they are BS? Well, first of all, no one's able to predict what's going to happen this coming season. Whether it's Vegas, whether it's ESPN, whether it's any of the drafting platforms, nobody's able to predict with exact accuracy. So regardless of where you're getting the information from for these rankings that you're getting, nobody has the exact answer. Everybody is just projecting and they're making educated guesses on what they think is going to happen next season. Obviously, when we're guessing, this doesn't account for injuries. This doesn't account for breakouts, especially breakouts. Breakouts are like something that ESPN, Vegas, nobody's able to predict. They don't know that someone's going to go from being a rookie who's drafted in the fourth round to having, I don't know, 1,200 yards in their rookie season or 1,000 yards in their rookie season. They just don't know that. They can't predict that. So not only is it injuries, not only is it breakouts, sometimes it's regression. People are just getting older. They're not as explosive. They're not as efficient. And they kind of just slowly start falling off the age cliff and they just do not perform the same. The other big thing too is offensive coordinator changes. A new offensive coordinator comes in and he might boost the performance output of a team overall. And people just aren't expecting that and don't see that coming. So it's one of those things where positively, negatively, like I said, these rankings are kind of just educated guesses. People are trying their best to give you something to look at that kind of gives you an idea if everything goes perfect and everything goes chalk. And I guess that's the other big thing too got to consider is that people are kind of guessing what they saw last year is what's going to happen next year or this year that we're going to be in. And the big issue is, yes, the past is the biggest dictator of what's going to happen in the future. But at the same token, especially in football, everything can be very fluid year to year. So to anticipate that what we saw last year is exactly what we're going to see this year, that doesn't really make as much sense. If that's the case, then why don't you just take last year's results, filter out the QBs, you can put them where they have them ranked or ADP, and just draft straight off that list. But you won't, because year to year situations change, injuries change, age changes, like everything changes year to year. So again, they're very, very educated guesses, but they're not going to be 100% accurate. And this is even worse when it comes to ADP. Why? Because ADP doesn't stand for rankings. It stands for average draft position. If you're someone who's been in fantasy football for a long time, you already know that. But think about it. Average draft position. This is not rankings. These are not projections. This is by and large the public. The public is the same people that bet against Vegas and lose because if they didn't, the casinos, the sports books would close down and close up shop because they wouldn't be making any money. This is where people are actually selecting people in their drafts. So what you got to realize is you can go on ESPN, you can go on Sleeper. I did this last year because it was like a fun thought experiment for myself. You can go from their ADP setting to projected fantasy stats for this coming season. And when you do that, you will see a difference in the rankings. I'm not saying that Christian McCaffrey is going to go from a round 1, round 2 pick to like round 10, but you will see a shift in projections and where people should be going versus the opposite of where they're actually being drafted. Again, it's not dramatic, but it does change. And these platforms positions that they have these guys numbered at. So if it's like I said, Christian McCaffrey is at pick number 12, that's because he started out in the summer at pick like 20 something and he's been drafted higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Does that mean that he should be going higher? Yeah, probably. Should he be going in the middle of the first round? I liked him better at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. That's me. But again, people start getting hype trains behind them. People start getting overexcited about players, overvaluing players. They kind of get emotional. People get emotional when they draft. So people start moving up boards and they start falling down boards because unfortunately a lot of the logic in the picking can kind of like go out the windows because we're kind of just like, yeah, this guy's going to be great, or nah, this guy's going to suck. I would never draft him. This is based on people and where they're drafting players. The issue with that ultimately is that everybody could overvalue someone like, let's say last year, like CMC. People know that there's a lot of injury risk. There's injury news coming out of camp, but everybody's still drafting him at 1. He never fell. He never fell to 1.2, 1.3. No, he stayed right there. And people hosed themselves and they hosed others because they were not willing to bump him down the board based on the injury news coming out of camp. When it comes to rankings, when it comes to ADP, they are meant to be tools. People use these things like they are coming out of the Bible. They are like, okay, it says, my favorite creators' rankings are this, or ESPN's rankings are this. And you can look at me and say, like, hey, well, Ethan, you do rankings. You have rankings that you like to make. And I say, yes, you are correct. I have my personal rankings that I put out here on YouTube. Why? Because it's meant to be a tool. It's meant to help you. You're not meant to be like, well, Ethan said this guy's wide receiver 5, so I got to take him as wide receiver 5. If you hate that wide receiver, don't draft him. If you have more information than I do because, there's an updated injury piece of news or there's an updated situational news for that team, and you believe that my ranking's now too high, don't draft him. Draft somebody else who I have plus or minus a couple of picks at the wide receiver spot if you want a wide receiver. Whether it's me or some other creator out there, their rankings are meant to be guidelines, just like ADP is meant to be guidelines. You do not have to follow it to a T. You do not have to be a slave to it. That is the reason why in a lot of my videos when I talk about drafting and draft strategy, it revolves around the idea that your draft is going to go mainly chalk. It's going to go exactly how the ADP on your platform says it will, plus or minus a couple spots until you get later in the rounds, and then it's plus or minus maybe like half a round to a round max. I'm not telling you to take crazy swings on crazy high upside guys way too early, and I'm not telling you to like dumpster dive into the hundreds picks when you're picking in round 4 or 5. But what I am telling you is do not feel like you're stuck. Do not feel like you're a slave. Do not just follow someone's rankings blindly. Do not follow your platform's ADP blindly. Because again, the rankings are just best projection guesses. Not saying that they are not accurate to some extent with where they should be going in ADP, just like the rankings that I put out or someone else puts out, or the stats that people put out for projections are not going to be helpful or in the ballpark. But again, they're both meant to be tools. Use them as tools. Use them as guidelines. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, where she's like, according to the rule of the brethren, or the rules of the brethren, and he's like, first of all, you're not a pirate, and second of all, they're more like guidelines. And I know I'm not quoting it correctly 100%. I do love Pirates of the Caribbean, so don't come at me with like, that was a horrible quotation, because I know that it was, but it's early, I'm kind of tired, and my mind's focused on football, so I'm not 100% on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride right now. Be better than your league mates who are going to blindly follow people's rankings and blindly follow ADP on your platform, because if you do that, if you work a little bit outside, color a little bit outside of the lines, you will have an advantage between 5 to 15% over your league mates who stick themselves in a box and do not get out of their own way. So if you are looking for other fantasy football draft strategies that are coloring outside the lines, that are a little bit different than what you're going to see out there on YouTube, I will have a couple of videos around here somewhere if you want to watch that, if you are so interested. Hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship in 2025. And hopefully I'll see you guys. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.